Hey Krishna devotees, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam class. So today we're going to take up another 5 shlokas of the third chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This chapter is titled that Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So in this particular chapter, we read up to the 34th shloka over the last several months. So today we'll pick up shlokas 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39. But just a quick recap in this particular chapter, there is a conversation that is happening between Suta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya. And Suta Goswami is in the first 5 shlokas of this particular chapter talking about the roles of the Purusha avatars of the Lord. So after having spoken about the 3 Purusha avatars, which is Karanodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He then moves on from shloka 6 to shloka 27, from shloka 6 to 25, where he talks about the 22 different incarnations of the Lord. Incarnations like the Matsya avatar, the Kurma avatar, the Nrsimha avatar, the avatar of Lord Ram, Parashuram. Then he predicts the avatar of Lord Buddha, and finally Kalki. So that goes on up to shloka number 25. Then in shloka 26 and 27, Suta Goswami is telling the sages of Naimisaranya that actually it's not just 22 incarnations, there are innumerable incarnations of the Lord. And therefore he has only mentioned those that are more prominent than others. So he's just given a sample of the incarnations. And then in shloka number 27, Suta Goswami talks about the opulences of the Lord, the vibhutis. Then in shlokas 28 and 29, that the major conclusion of these 2 shlokas is that Krishna is ultimately the fountainhead of all incarnations. Even though Lord Krishna is mentioned as one of the incarnations, nevertheless, Suta Goswami clarifies to the sages here that when it comes to Lord Krishna, he is actually avatari, which means he is the source of all other incarnations. So all other incarnations are known as avatars, and the source of all these avatars is the avatari, Krishna. And last week, we were reading from shlokas 30 to 34, where a different view of the Virat Rupa or the cosmic form of the Lord was described. Now, we were discussing that this is a little bit technical because the Virat Rupa form of the Lord is not the real form. But if you have to look at the universal cosmos, how is the cosmos structured? So if you look at it from a 14 planetary systems, then the top 7 planetary systems represents the Lord's body from the hip up. The bottom 7 planetary systems represents the Lord's body from the hip down. This we will read a little bit more about actually in Canto 2. Those descriptions are not given here, but how do you conceive the cosmic form of the Lord? Utilizing the whole cosmos itself and how various aspects of the cosmos represents different parts of the bodies of the Supreme. So that is how we ended last week. So this week we'll begin with shloka number 35. So now from shlokas 35 to 39, this section talks about understanding the Lord and describing the Lord and the Lord's beauty and the potency, etc. So in today's shloka, we will just look at these aspects of the Lord. And then after that, next week, perhaps we will conclude chapter 3 of Canto 1. So let's begin with shloka number 35. Evam janmani karmani
Evam janmani karmani
yakartur ajanasya cha
ह्यकर्तुरजनस्य च
वर्णयन्ति स्म कवयः
वर्णयन्ति स्म कवयः
वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पतेः.
वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पतेः.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Evam,
Evam.
thus,
Thus.
Janmani,
Janmani.
birth,
Birth.
Karmani,
Karmani.
activities,
Activities.
He,
Certainly.
Akartuhu,
Akartuhu.
of the inactive,
Of the inactive.
Ajanasya,
Ajanasya.
of the unborn,
Of the unborn.
Cha,
Cha.
and Varnayanti,
Varnayanti.
describe,
Describe.
Sma,
Sma.
in the past,
In the past.
Kavayaha,
Kavayaha.
the learned,
The learned.
Vedaguhyani,
Vedaguhyani.
undiscoverable by the Vedas,
Undiscoverable by the Vedas.
Hritpatehe,
Hritpatehe.
of the Lord of the heart.
Of the Lord of the heart.
Translation. Thus learned men
Thus learned men
describe the births and activities
describe the births and activities
of the unborn and inactive,
of the unborn and inactive,
which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures.
which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures.
He is the Lord of the heart.
He is the Lord of the heart.
So in this particular shloka, after having described the cosmic form, now we have to reject that cosmic form and understand what the real form of the Lord is. So for those who have a hard time grasping that the Lord has a spiritual form, then their attention is directed towards the cosmic form so that they may begin to understand the significance of the Supreme Lord. So here Prabhupada is writing, both the Lord and the living entities are essentially all spiritual. Therefore, both of them are eternal and neither of them has birth and death. So in this case, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the Jivatma as the soul and the Paramatma as the supersoul. The difference is that the so-called births and disappearances of the Lord are unlike those of the living beings. The living beings who take birth and then again accept death are bound by the laws of material nature. But the so-called appearance and disappearance of the Lord are not actions of material nature, but are demonstrations of the internal potency of the Lord, which means the Lord is not subject to karma. He does not come based on karma. We do, however. Our past karma determines our current birth, and our current activities determine our future birth. They are described by the great sages for the purpose of self realization. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord that his so called birth in the material world and his activities are all transcendental. So, no matter where the Lord goes, the Lord is always the Supreme Lord. So, he does not change his spiritual form whatsoever. And simply by meditation on such activities, one can attain realization of Brahman and thus become liberated from material bondage. In the Shrutis, it is said that the birthless appears to take birth. The Supreme has nothing to do, but because he is omnipotent, everything is performed by him naturally, as if done automatically. Omnipotent means all powerful. If somebody is all powerful, they should be able to do anything and everything. They should also be able to defy our common sense of what is logical. That is the Supreme Lord. As a matter of fact, the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his different activities are all confidential, even to the Vedic literatures. Yet they are displayed by the Lord to bestow mercy upon the conditioned souls. We should always take advantage of the narrations of the activities of the Lord, which are meditations on Brahman, in the most convenient and palatable form. So here, the description that Prabhupada is writing here is that we should hear about the descriptions of the Lord. Then that leads to attracting the Jivatma towards the Supersoul. That brings us to shloka number 36. Sava idam vishvamamoghalīlaha
Sava idam vishvam amoghalilah
shrujatyavatyatina sajjatesmin
srijatyavat atina sajjatesmin
bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantraha
bhuteshu chantarahita atmatantarah
षाड्वर्गिकं जिह्रति षड्गुणेशः
sadvargikam jihrati sad guneshah
Saha,
saha,
the Supreme Lord,
the Supreme Lord,
Va,
va,
alternately,
idam,
this,
vishvam,
manifested universes,
manifested universes,
Amogha Leelaha,
amogha leelah,
one whose activities are spotless,
one whose activities are spotless,
Srijati,
srijati,
creates,
creates,
Avati Atti,
avati atti,
maintains and annihilates,
maintains and annihilates,
Na,
na,
not,
not,
Sajjate,
sajjate,
is affected by,
is affected by,
Asmin,
asmin,
in them,
in them,
Bhuteshu,
bhuteshu,
in all living beings,
in all living beings,
Cha,
cha,
also,
also,
Antarhitaha,
antarhitah,
living within,
living within,
Atmatantraha,
atmatantrah,
self-independent,
self-independent,
Shat Vargikam,
shatvargikam,
endowed with all the potencies of his opulences,
endowed with all the potencies of his opulences,
Jighrati,
jigrati,
superficially attached,
superficially attached,
like smelling the fragrance,
like smelling the fragrance,
Shat Guna Ishaha,
shat guna ishah,
master of the six senses.
master of the six senses,
Translation: the Lord,
the Lord,
whose activities are always spotless,
whose activities are always spotless,
is the master of the six senses
is the master of the six senses,
and is fully omnipotent with six opulences.
and is fully omnipotent with six opulences.
He creates the manifested universes,
He creates the manifested universes,
maintains them,
maintains them,
and annihilates them
and annihilates them
without being in the least affected.
without being in the least affected.
He is within every living being
He is within every living being
and is always independent.
and is always independent.
So Prabhupada writes in this purport, the prime difference between the Lord and the living entities is that the Lord is the creator and the living entities are the created. Here he is called the Amogha Leelaha, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. That means there is nothing imperfect. Those who create disturbance in his creation are themselves disturbed. He is transcendental to all material afflictions because he is full with all six opulences, namely wealth, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, and thus he is the master of the senses. So imagine a house full of children. Every child is doing something different. creating quite a bit of ruckus in their own ways. Imagine how perturbed the parents would be with so many different children running around doing so many different things. The Lord has millions and trillions of universes, and all of us, His children, are doing so many different things, making such a ruckus. And the Lord is unperturbed. Hence, He's the master of the senses. No? If somebody does something, we get easily irritated. Imagine the Lord is peaceful, knowing fully well that His creation is being subjected to all kinds of difficulties by the jivatmas, by His own children. He creates these manifested universes in order to reclaim the living beings who are within them, suffering threefold miseries, maintains them, and in due course annihilates them without being the least affected by such actions. So, for a certain amount of time, the Lord will create, He will maintain, and even though the jivatmas are still there with their karmic reactions, He will simply destroy everything. And when the Lord destroys everything, all the jivatmas go back and rest in the Lord's body. And when the Lord creates again, the jivatmas all come out back with their respective karmas into their respective bodies, into the respective lokas, into the respective universes. And this cycle goes on. He is connected with this material creation very superficially, as one smells odor without being connected with the odorous article. So just because you can smell something that is obnoxious doesn't mean you are part of that obnoxious article. So even though the Lord may be witnessing a whole lot of obnoxious things in His creation, nevertheless, He has nothing to do with those obnoxious things. Non-godly elements, therefore, can never approach Him despite all endeavors. So here, Sutta Goswami is in very brief describing the qualities of the Lord. What are they? Amogha Leela. That means the Lord and His pastimes are spotless. You cannot find fault in the Lord's pastimes. The second aspect of the Lord, that He creates, maintains, and destroys, but yet He remains disaffected by any of that. The third is that even though the Lord creates and remains aloof, yet He is within each one of us as Paramatma. Even though He is in each one of us as Paramatma, the Lord is nevertheless independent. Atma Tantra. And the fifth quality that Sutta Goswami is describing in this shloka is that the Lord has 6 opulences. And the sixth quality that Sutta Goswami is talking about is the Lord is the master of these 6 senses. Sadgunesha. So these are the qualities of the Lord. So 6 qualities described in one simple short shloka. That brings us to shloka number 37. न चास्य कश्चिन्निपुणेन धातुः
न चास्य कश्चिन्निपुणेन
धातुः
धातुः
न चास्य कश्चिन्निपुणेन धातुः
न चास्य कश्चिन्निपुणेन धातुः
अवैति जन्तुः कुमनीष ऊतिः
अवैति जन्तुः कुमनीष ऊतिः
नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः
नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः
तन्तन्वतो नटचर्यामि वाग्न्यः
Santanvato natacharyam ivagyah.
Na,
Na,
not,
not,
cha,
cha,
and,
and,
asya,
asya,
of him,
of him,
kaschita,
kaschit,
anyone,
anyone,
nipunena,
nipunena,
by dexterity,
by dexterity,
dhatuho,
dhatuhu,
of the creator,
of the creator,
avaiti,
avaiti,
can know,
can know,
jantuhu,
jantuhu,
the living being,
the living being,
humanishaha,
humanishaha,
with a poor fund of knowledge,
with a poor fund of knowledge,
utihi,
utihi,
activities of the Lord,
activities of the Lord,
namani,
namani,
his names,
his names,
rupani,
rupani,
his forms,
his forms,
manaha vachobhihi,
manaha vachobihi,
by dint of mental speculation or deliverance of speeches,
by dint of mental speculation or deliverance of speeches,
santanvataha,
santanvataha,
displaying,
displaying,
natacharyam,
natacharyam,
a dramatic action,
a dramatic action,
iva,
iva,
like,
like,
agnyaha,
agnyaha,
the foolish,
the foolish,
translation. The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge
the foolish with a poor fund of knowledge,
cannot know the transcendental nature
cannot know the transcendental nature
of the forms,
of the forms,
names,
names,
and activities of the Lord,
and activities of the Lord,
who is playing like an actor
who is playing like an actor
in a drama,
in a drama,
nor can they express such things,
nor can they express such things,
neither in their speculations,
neither in their speculations,
nor in their words.
nor in their words.
So, the Lord as an actor is what Sutta Goswami is saying. So, those people who are not intelligent cannot understand what is the Lord doing with his Leelas. So, Prabhupada is writing, no one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. No? Language has its limitations, and your ability to envision the Lord also with your mind also has its limitations. So, language can only take you so far in trying to describe something that is unlimited, all powerful, omniscient. It is impossible for language to fully describe the beauty of the Lord, the power of the Lord, the opulence of the Lord. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. Whatever we can do with language, we do our best to describe the Lord using language. But language has its limitations. And yet, there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. So, this particular shloka, Sutta Goswami is saying, sometimes the unintelligent, they witness these activities of the Lord and misinterpret it, misjudge it, and therefore they are not able to really grasp what is it that the Lord is doing. So they are just engaging in a lot of speculation or guesswork. To the layman, his activities, appearance and disappearance, his names, his forms, his paraphernalia, his personalities, and all things in relation with him are mysterious. It is not possible to understand the pastimes of the Lord. Now, acharyas will describe certain pastimes to enhance our understanding, to enhance our faith in the Lord. But we by ourselves, with our limited knowledge, our tendency to make mistakes, our tendency to be subject to illusion, our tendency to cheat ourselves and cheat others, we really cannot do any justice to trying to understand the Lord's pastimes. There are two classes of materialists, namely the fruitive workers and the empiric philosophers. Fruitive workers means those who are just chasing things for their own personal sense satisfaction. And then you have your philosophers who are trying to attempt to understand not just themselves, but this very complicated universe and its systems. And beyond that, even more complicated and unfathomable is the Supreme Lord Himself. So the fruitive workers have practically no information of the absolute truth. And the mental speculators, after being frustrated in fruitive activities, turn their faces towards the absolute truth and try to know Him by mental speculation. So, because the Jivatma is so small, their intelligence is so limited, our mind is so distracted, we can only make a teeny weeny attempt to try and understand. And everything that we try to explain at best may be speculation or inaccurate. And for all these men, the absolute truth is a mystery, as the jugglery of the magician is a mystery to children. So when a child sees a magician, they are awed. They think this magician must be like God. He can just do some amazing things. They don't understand that this magic is happening because of the potency of that juggler. So similarly, we cannot understand the pastimes of the Lord because we do not understand the potencies of the Lord. Being deceived by the jugglery of the Supreme Being, the non-devotees, who may be very dexterous in fruitive work and mental speculation, are always in ignorance. With such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. So to really understand the Lord, you have to hear more and more about Him. One cannot experiment when it comes to the Supreme Lord or to trying to understand the Supreme Lord. One has to accept with faith what other acharyas have already told us. So we have to accept that with faith and move forward. One day, somebody asked Prabhupada, they are reading so much scripture. We are telling everybody, worship Krishna, worship Krishna, worship Krishna. What at the end of life, I discovered that all of this was nothing at all. It was just all an imagination where we said, worship Krishna, worship Krishna, worship Krishna. And at the time of death, you discover something that doesn't exist. Prabhupada said that is also speculation. And Prabhupada's argument to this person was that, so we are chanting the holy names of the Lord. What is the loss for us if we become a better human being and if we are able to manage ourselves better? Is there any loss? But then what if at the time of death we discover who Krishna is and we realize, oh, we wasted all our life not doing anything? Prabhupada says, which is a bigger loss, not practicing or practicing and discovering nothing exists, or not practicing and discovering that Krishna is indeed the Supreme Lord? So which is better? So with such limited knowledge, they are unable to penetrate into the mysterious region of transcendence. The mental speculators are a little more progressive than the gross materialists or the fruitive workers. But because they are also within the grip of illusion, they take it for granted that anything which has a form, a name, and activities is but a product of material energy. So there is a certain set of people who believe and accept the philosophy that the Lord cannot have a form because form means limitation. Form means restriction. Therefore, they believe that the Lord does not have a form. And that anytime the Lord does take on a form, that is not His real self. His real self is just this Brahman. And because such mental speculators equalize the transcendental name and form of the Lord with mundane names and form, they are in fact in ignorance. So they think when the Lord comes in the form of Krishna that he's not very extraordinary. He's just another Jivatma like you and me. Or worse, that he comes under the influence of the three gunas and therefore he is controlled. So in this shloka, Suta Goswami is saying such people can never, ever, ever understand the Lord. With such a poor fund of knowledge, there is no access to the real nature of the Supreme Being. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is always in a transcendental position, even when he is within the material world. That means even if he enters the jail cell, he is not under the control of the jailer or the superintendent of this jail. He's always free. But ignorant men consider the Lord one of the great personalities of the world, and thus they are misled by the illusory energy. So, Yogamaya does not allow those who are not devotees of the Lord to actually understand, see, recognize, or enjoy the pastimes of the Lord. So, the essence of shloka number 37 is those who are not intelligent cannot understand the Lord. So, that brings us to shloka number 38 of chapter 3. Savedadhatuh padavim parasya
Savedadatu padavim parasya
Durantaviryasya rathangapaneः
durantaviryasya ratangapaneः
यो मायया सन्ततयानुवृत्त्या
yo mayaya santataryanuvritya
भजेत तत्पादसरोजगन्धम्
bhajet tappadasarojagandham
सः
saha
he
he alone
Veda
Veda
can know
can know
dhatuhu
dhatuhu
of the Creator,
of the Creator,
padavim
Padavim,
glories,
glories,
parasya
Parasya,
of the transcendence,
of the transcendence,
duranta viryasya
Duranta Viryasya,
the greatly powerful,
of the greatly powerful,
ratha angapanehe
Rata Angapanehe,
of Lord Krishna,
of Lord Krishna,
who bears in his hand the wheel of a chariot.
who bears in his hand the wheel of a chariot.
Yaha,
Yaha,
one who, amayaya,
Amayaya,
without reservation,
without reservation,
santataya,
Santataya,
without any gap,
without any gap,
anuvritya,
Anuvritya,
favorably,
favorably,
bhajeta,
Bhajeta,
renders service,
renders service,
tatpada,
Tatpada,
of his feet,
of his feet,
saroja gandham,
Saroja Gandham,
fragrance of the lotus.
fragrance of the lotus.
Translation. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna,
Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna,
who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand,
who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand,
can know the creator of the universe
can know the creator of the universe
in his full glory, power, and transcendence.
in his full glory, power, and transcendence.
So Prabhupada is writing here in the purport, only the pure devotees can know the transcendental name, form, and activities of Lord Krishna due to their being completely freed from the reactions of fruitive work and mental speculation. It is said that we have only two choices. Either we can be favorably disposed to Krishna, or we can be unfavorably disposed to him. And if you are unfavorably disposed to Krishna, then you are very much busy with Maya Devi. So there is a favorable way to worship Krishna, which is the direct form of worshipping Krishna. There is an indirect way of worshipping Krishna, which is to worship Durga Devi. In the sense you get caught in her tentacles. You know, Durga Devi has the trident. That trident represents the three gunas, sattva gun, rajagun, and tamagun. So she controls you with those three gunas. The pure devotees have nothing to derive as personal profit from their unalloyed service to the Lord. So the devotees are serving the Lord because it brings them great joy. They are not serving the Lord with the hope that they will get something in return from the Lord. So a pure devotee does not have any of this calculation. Therefore, Suta Goswami is saying unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service, which means you love serving the Lord and therefore you serve. You're not serving the Lord hoping that He will shower you with His favors. They render incessant. Incessant means never ending service to the Lord spontaneously without any reservation, which means they don't have to make a calculation. Do I really have to get up and go to the temple and do the seva? Today I'm too tired. The traffic is too bad. One day let me take rest. I will catch up on the next festival. They don't make these calculations. If there is service, they will run to do it. Actually, there is no interruption in their service to the Lord. They are always thinking about the Lord, and therefore their services are always spontaneous, without any reservation, without any calculation. Everyone within the creation of the Lord is rendering service to the Lord indirectly or directly. No one is an exception to this law of the Lord. So, how are you serving? How are you rendering service to the Lord directly? When you're worshipping Him directly. Ultimately, how are you rendering service to the Lord indirectly? When you're worshipping and under the control of Mayadevi. Prabhupada is writing, no one is an exception to this law of the Lord. Those who are rendering service indirectly, they are being forced by the illusory agent of the Lord, are rendering service unto Him unfavorably. Which means this is the kind of service that the Lord will not accept. So you're trying to serve the Lord, but you're doing it the wrong way. Therefore, that kind of service is not accepted by Him. But those who are rendering service unto Him directly, under the direction of His beloved agent, are rendering service unto Him favorably. Agent here means the Lord's pure devotees who come down to assist us, to take us back home. The great acharyas, the pure devotees. So they teach us how to serve the Lord. Such favorable servitors are devotees of the Lord, and by the grace of the Lord, they can enter into the mysterious region of transcendence by the mercy of the Lord. But the mental speculators, they remain in darkness all the time. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Himself guides the pure devotees toward the path of realization due to their constant engagement in the loving service of the Lord in spontaneous affection. That means any service that we undertake, we do so because we love the Lord. Not because we think somebody is trying to take advantage of my free time and therefore they are asking me to come and serve. Somebody is constantly calling me and saying, come and do this seva, that seva, you know. No, that is not how a devotee looks at it. A devotee looks at every opportunity to serve the Lord as the mercy of the Lord. That's the difference between a devotee's mind and a non-devotee's mind. A non-devotee's mind is always calculating. Why is this person trying to take advantage of me? Why are they always calling me? A devotee willingly serves the Lord, any and every opportunity that they get. That is their spontaneous love and affection. So they don't think twice about these things. That is the secret of entering into the kingdom of God, is spontaneous love and affection and service to Him. Fruitive activities and speculation are no qualifications for entering. So if you're trying to figure out who the Lord is on your own through speculation, Prabhupada is saying, then how are you going to enter into the spiritual world? Because that's not the mood, right? Because then you will go into the spiritual world and still be questioning the Lord. So who can enter the Lord's house? Those who have faith in Him and those who express their love for Him unreservedly. So then you have an opportunity to enter into the spiritual. So essentially, in the 38th shloka, we are talking about that only the pure devotees can understand the Lord who is all powerful. Which brings us to the last shloka today, where actually Sutta Goswami is glorifying the Naimisharanya sages for asking those 6 questions. So that brings us to shloka number 39. Atheha dhanya bhagavanta ittham
अथेह धन्या भगवन्त इत्थम्
yadva sudeve khila lokanathe
यद्वासुदेवेऽखिललोकनाथे
kurvanti sarvatmakamyatmabhavam
कुर्वन्ति सर्वात्मकमाख्यमात्मकमात्मभावम्
kurvanti sarvatmakamatmabhavam
कुर्वन्ति सर्वात्मकमात्मभावम्
nayatra bhuyah parivarta ugraha
न यत्र भूयः परिवत्र उग्रः
atha
अथ
thus
thus
iha
इह
in this world
in this world
dhanyah
धन्याः
successful
successful
bhagavantah
भगवन्तः
perfectly cognizant
perfectly cognizant
itham
इत्थम्
such
such
yat
yat
with what
what
vasudeve
Vasudeve
unto the personality of Godhead
unto the personality of Godhead
akhila
Akhila
all embracing
all embracing
lokanathe
Lokanathe
unto the proprietor of all the universes
unto the proprietor of all the universes
kurvanti
Kuruvanti
inspires
inspires
sarva atmakam
Sarva Atmakam
100%
100%
atma
Atma
spirit
spirit
bhavam
Bhavam
ecstasy
ecstasy
na
Na
never
never
yatra
Yatra
wherein
wherein
bhuyah
Bhuyaha
again
again
parivartah
Parivartaha
repetition
repetition
ugraha
Ugraha
dreadful
dreadful
translation only by making such enquiries in this world
only by making such inquiries in this world
can one be successful and perfectly cognizant.
can one be successful and perfectly cognizant.
For such enquiries, invoke transcendental ecstatic love.
For such enquiries, invoke transcendental ecstatic love
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Who is the proprietor of all the universes.
Who is the proprietor of all the universes.
And guarantee 100% immunity.
And guarantee 100% immunity.
From the dreadful repetition of birth and death.
From the dreadful repetition of birth and death.
So Suta Goswami is saying, you have been so merciful by asking all these lovely questions. When you ask questions about the Lord, then it invokes remembrance of the Lord. And remembrance of the Lord makes one recollect that we love the Lord so much. The Prabhupada writes, the inquiries of the sages headed by Shaunaka are herewith praised by Suta Goswami on the merit of their transcendental nature, which means the questions itself were not ordinary questions, the 6 questions that they asked in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. The questions itself were asked in such a fashion that Suta Goswami had to speak about the Lord. As already concluded, only the devotees of the Lord can know him to a considerable extent, and no one else can know him at all. So the devotees are perfectly cognizant of all spiritual knowledge. The personality of Godhead is the last word in absolute truth. We've already discussed earlier the difference between Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan in one of the earlier shlokas. Impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma, Supersoul, are included in the knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So that means if you are focused on Bhagavan realization, then along with Bhagavan realization, you will automatically get Paramatma realization and Brahman realization. You don't have to do it separately. So one who knows the personality of Godhead can automatically know all about him, his multipotencies and his expansions. So the devotees are congratulated as being all successful. A 100% devotee of the Lord is immune to the dreadful material miseries of repeated birth and death. That means the only protection for us from another cycle of birth and death is to surrender to Lord Krishna in this life itself, and not to waste another minute having any doubts about this particular process of Bhakti Yoga. That this process of Bhakti Yoga will take us closer and closer to Krishna until, as Prabhupada writes very beautifully in the Nectar of Devotion, we penetrate the external coverings of this material cosmos and we enter to the spiritual cosmos and reside at the lotus feet of the Lord to become his ever-loving servants. So thus we've completed 5 shlokas today, and the next 5 shlokas that we will take, with that we will conclude chapter 3 of Canto 1, and the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam itself is going to be spoken about from shlokas 40 to 44. So join us next Sunday. Thank you very much.